we still talk about you got to be able to accept defeat and setbacks and losses if you want to, have your career go in an upward trajectory. You better be able to deal with setbacks. So he made sure people knew, I know he's the winningest coach in New England history, but he also lost a ton of games. And you can't, some of your, as you know, and your listeners know, some of your greatest, growth and expansion as a person comes after a loss, a setback, a defeat. And if you can channel that experience of losing or a setback the right way, you can have amazing personal growth as a person. As a basketball team and a sports team, you can as well. But he wanted to make that clear when people say, "Oh, you've won all these games." Yeah, but I also lost a bunch of games. And you have to be able to deal with those setbacks in order to really win in sports. And guess what? In sales and in entrepreneurship and
in life.
And as a parent, in life.
Yeah.
That's why the parallels, I absolutely love what we do because the parallels are so distinct.
Papaya and hello all. Welcome to another episode of Transform Your Future with me, Eddie Isin, where I sit down with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and high achievers as they identify areas I can improve on and guide me to further my self-improvement practice. For more information and insights, join the newsletter at transformyourfuture.com, where I write about reinvention, personal growth, and identity. If you are watching this on YouTube, please comment. Listening to audio only, send a message through your podcast app. Email me or text me directly at 813-722-1417. We want to hear from you. Let us know what you think and if you have any ideas for future topics. Our guest today is Tommy Montelli. With a passion for leadership, resilience, and personal development, Tommy is a dynamic entrepreneur and former athlete whose journey from the basketball court to the business world has been marked by success and inspiration. As a former standout college basketball player and coach with multiple championship victories at the high school level, Tommy has honed a unique perspective on the parallels between athletics and life. Tommy shares invaluable insights into how the lessons learned from sports can be applied to every aspect of our lives, from achieving optimal health and fostering meaningful relationships to navigating the competitive landscape of career and entrepreneurship. Through engaging personal stories and practical advice, Tommy empowers listeners to unlock their full potential and embrace the mindset of a champion in all their endeavors. We had a great conversation and touched on so many important topics. I especially enjoyed Tommy's stories about his father, who as a high school basketball coach won multiple championships and made a real impact in his family, community, and his players' lives. I hope you enjoy our talk as much as I did. So Tom, welcome to Transform Your Future. So glad to have you.
Eddie, thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure, and I look forward to our discussion.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to just jump right in and let's talk a little bit about your background and your history of how you ended up where you are today, helping to coach people and get people to level up in their lives and reduce all the burnout and stress and fatigue and focus on what's meaningful.
Yeah, well, I grew up the son of a coach, Eddie. And not a coach like, is popular these days. I grew up the son of a basketball coach. And he was a high school basketball coach. My dad was. And he would take me, I'm the youngest of 6 kids. He would take me to his practices at a very early age. Mm-hmm. And I would be on the basketball court. I would see my dad coaching his teams. I would see the response of the kids to his coaching. And I said, wow, this is pretty interesting. I fell in love with the game of basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I got older. I played for my dad in high school. I went to college on a basketball scholarship.
Yes, sir.
And I coached with my dad for 20 years. But after I got out of college, I was at a crossroads. I said, listen, I have a chance to go coach college basketball at a pretty high level. I decided to get into business. And I get into business, and thankfully we've been successful. But all of those lessons, Eddie, that I learned while I was playing for my dad and coaching with my dad always were in the back of my head. And you can seamlessly integrate lessons from athletics and business. And that's what we started to do. And so I am the son of a coach. I became an entrepreneur, and now we're molding those two facets, athletics and entrepreneurship, and really just living, flourishing in your life. We've kind of figured that out in our little, in our little world here. So we're trying to help as many folks as we can using principles from athletics, which I think is important.
Sure. And, knowing a little bit about you, Tom, and talking to you previously, I would say that probably your dad didn't give out any participation trophies.
He didn't. No, there was, you had to earn any trophy that you got back in the day. And I think that was a good way, Eddie, to go about things. And I still think to this day, it's a good way to go about things. In your life as an entrepreneur, as you know, and some of your listeners know, man, I tell people it feels like it's not working most of the time. This journey of entrepreneurship, you got to be able to take a hit. You got to be able to fall down. You got to be able to get back up. And guess what? It's going to happen again tomorrow, or it might be happening in 10 minutes from now. Who knows? But no participation trophies. You had to earn everything you got. And I think that background of playing for a tough coach who also was a world-class, and I'll get into this, a world-class person. But when we stepped onto the court, we had very high standards. And that translated, thankfully, to my career as an entrepreneur.
Yes, absolutely. And I was thinking when you were talking that, and when I was a young entrepreneur, I thought somehow that I was working towards something that when I got there, like that was going to be it. Like there was like a finish line and I got there and now I won and that's it. And it turns out that that's not how it works. It turns out that life is going to continue to happen. Things are going to you're involved in are going to keep changing and growing. Yep. Life is going to change. We're going to have economic disasters. We're going to have people get sick and die, right? There's all kinds of things. You're going to have health issues. You're going to have to take care of relationship issues that now I've got to focus my attention on these relationship issues. So things are always constantly changing and evolving. So, I love what you're talking about, like, having those high standards, showing up for life. Look, being honest, this is like the one area that I think is the rub, is like, if you can't be honest with yourself about stuff, you have a deeper issue than anybody can help you with. But if you could be honest with yourself about who you are, what you're doing, and, are you really going all in? Are you doing your best? I work a lot, Tom, with a lot of salespeople and commission-only salespeople and solopreneurs. And, if you want to be the best salesperson, I hope you're reading the books. I hope you're studying it. I hope you're practicing it. Like, in basketball, the guy goes on the court, he shoots a few hundred baskets a day, every day, so that he can be the best at what he does, right? That's right. So as a salesperson, you need to do the same thing, right? You need to go all in and you need to practice, role play, practice, and just keep getting in front of people to be the best that you can be, right?
That is exactly right, Eddie. You just nailed it. And in sports, and in basketball in particular, there are times when you can't hide. Your skill is going to that's going to be exposed. Yes. And if you haven't put in the reps, if you hadn't put in the time early in the morning, when what we call the unseen hours, right? When you're by yourself working on your skills, if you're not doing that consistently, And if you're not doing it with the right coaching, you will get exposed in sports and in basketball. Same thing in sales. I have a deep history in sales. You're exactly right. You have to get the reps in. If you think you can just come in and charm somebody because you maybe have the gift of gab in your opinion, it's not going to work. You have to get the reps in. You have to know. You have to kind of understand the cadence. You have to understand the other person and how they're coming across. There's a lot of nuances, and it takes repetition. It takes work every day, just as it does to develop skills in a sport, whether it's basketball, my love, or baseball or football or anything, tennis. And there's a clear, distinct similarity between sales and sports. I grew up, my first job, I was they called back then a broker, a stockbroker, essentially. And I came out of the gate, like, this is awesome. Like, there's no cap on what I can do, what I can make. Yeah. I can come in whenever I want. I can stay as late as I want. I'll win if I make more calls than that guy. Like, if I dial faster and more often, I can win. No one's can. That was, to me, it was like, this was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
if you keep improving your skills, because the average guy, he's not improving his skills. He's not reading. He's not eating it up. He's not studying. He's not practicing. He's not out on the court shooting, 300 baskets a day. Right. And so that's how you get your little edge, right? You need leverage. And that's always been my leverage, right? Is I'm going to perform better.
And as you said earlier, even when we're talking about sales, it's that practice that you hone your craft. It's that back and forth. It's where you're not on the phone with a guy, but you're talking to your guy in the office and you're practicing your craft. Eddie, how about that? I tell we work with a lot of entrepreneurs now, and they come to me and I'll say, and we were big on. My dad was the son of Italian immigrants, and he grew up with really nothing. He was a high school teacher at a Catholic high school. So we had 6 kids. So do the math. There wasn't a lot to go around when we were growing up. Yeah. We understood that, and we were okay with that. But we understood that you had to get out there. You have to get after. You have to create some opportunities for yourself. And my dad was always big on the fundamentals. He was never an overly complex guy. He kept things simple. And in sports and in business, if you keep things simple, you can have a hell of a career. And it's the fundamentals. It's spending the time on the basics and getting outstanding at those basics, one of which is sales. And we talk with a lot of guys in entrepreneurship, and they just don't get that. They don't understand that you have to do your homework, you have to read, you have to listen to the podcast, but you got to put in the reps. That is critical.
Yeah. And I think also what I find, especially with entrepreneurs, is they underestimate what they really need to do to be professional and to be the best that they can be, but they overestimate on other areas. And I think that the interesting thing is that what I have found has been the biggest drawback. And we're going to get into this a little bit because I understand some of your philosophies and your dad's philosophies that he talked about, which are so vital and important, is the fact that human beings tend to beat themselves up. They tend to try to be perfectionists. They give themselves a hard time. They get going down the wrong rabbit hole. You know what I'm saying? And oftentimes we need another person that we trust, that we believe has our best interest at heart, to kind of mentor us and help us to say, hey, you're focusing on the wrong thing right now. You go out and you do something and you're working towards a goal, and, your proposal is not accepted. Somebody turns it down. You just spent a month doing it or whatever. And then people have the tendency to think it's my fault. I did something wrong. Maybe not. Maybe you just need to forget about it. Go to the next one and just, learn what you can, do the best with it, and do it again. Right.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Great point.
But what I was trying to say though earlier, or what I was saying was that what I like about your philosophy and your dad's philosophy, as you had mentioned it before when we were talking, is the fact that it's not just about the pursuit of excellence in your career, but it's also about how all of that works together with your health, your mindset, your freedom, right? Because what's the point of going out and succeeding wildly if you're miserable every day,
Yeah.
right? If you're not happy,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
You need
that's a great point.
Yeah.
So I tell people, Eddie, that my dad was a world-class coach. He won 878 games in 50 seasons. That is the most of any coach in New England history, boys basketball. Wow. But when someone would bring that up, he'd say, yes, I've won all those games. I also lost 325 games, he would say. He won 11 state championships, which is the most in Connecticut history. But when someone would bring that up, he would say, yeah, but I also lost 7 state championship games. And so he was very humble. His point in saying that was, listen, I've had all the accolades. He has a plaque, the Naismith Hall of Fame in Springfield, Mass. He got the Lifetime Achievement Award in the Naismith Hall of Fame. So this guy has a plaque with his picture on it and his name in the Naismith Hall of Fame. And so, but you'd never know it. He would say, I lost 325 games. And he wanted people to know that, and his players to know, yes, we've won a bunch of games. I've also lost a bunch. I've also lost probably more games than most. And so we still talk about some of you got to be able to accept defeat and setbacks and losses if you want to, have your career go in an upward trajectory. You better be able to deal with setbacks. So he made sure people knew, yeah, I know he's the winningest coach in New England history, but he also lost a ton of games. And you can't, some of your, as you know, and your listeners know, some of your greatest, growth and expansion as a person comes after a loss, a setback, a defeat. And if you can channel that experience of losing or a setback the right way, you can have amazing personal growth as a person. As a basketball team and a sports team, you can as well. But he wanted to make that clear when people say, oh, you've won all these games. Yeah, but I also lost a bunch of games. And you have to be able to deal with those setbacks in order to really win in sports. And guess what? In sales and in entrepreneurship and
in life.
And as a parent, in life.
Yeah.
That's why the parallels, I absolutely love what we do because the parallels are so distinct. And another thing, some of his best coaching, Eddie, he was a world-class coach, but some of his best coaching never took place within the confines of the basketball court. His best coaching many times, and some of his most important coaching took place outside of the basketball court. When former players or current players or former players in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s even, would come back to him. Yeah. And they called him coach because they had such respect. They knew he would do anything for them. And they came back to him with problems, with addictions, with marital problems, with their business was imploding. And they would come back to coach for advice. And he was brilliant at this. But he was able to coach guys back onto the right path, not on the basketball court. We're talking off the basketball court. Yeah. So if you know anything about my father, and there's been a lot written about my dad, and he was a well-known guy. When he passed away last July at 92 years old, and at his wake, there were thousands of people that showed up to pay their respects, not because he won 878 games and 11 state championships. They showed up because of the massive impact he had on so many lives on the court, Eddie. More importantly, in my opinion, off the court. Yeah. So that is that's an impact We talk about trying to make an impact, a positive impact on people. And he certainly did that. So I now try to just do if I can have this much of an impact on people, this percentage of what my dad did, I'm good. And that's all I'm striving for, because those are big shoes to fill. But what a message and what an impact he had.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, may he rest in peace, and my condolences. That's a difficult thing, losing a parent. But what a great story about, how he touched so many lives. I think one of the keys that I know that I want to talk about with you, in this is also the fact that there's faith, and how faith is integral to the whole process, right? And like, I find this very challenging with some individuals. If you don't have some type of faith, if you don't believe that there's something greater than you in the universe, how do you deal with adversity in life? You know what I'm saying? Like, I believe in God, and I have a relationship with this God of my understanding, right? Of what I believe. And everybody, I believe, needs that, because I don't know how you can go through life with the ups and downs and turmoils and adversity without having that.
You're speaking my language now, Eddie, and I will tell you, you are so correct. And again, I go back, I was fortunate enough, I have great mentors. But I had the ultimate mentor, in my opinion, in my dad, there was a book written about my dad when he was 85, 86 years old. And the title of the book was God, Family, and Basketball.
Yes.
Those are the three things. And in that order, Ed.
Yes.
Basketball was a distant third. He was known as a basketball coach all across the country. But basketball was a distant third behind God, family. Yes. So he would say, guys, and thank you for bringing this up, because faith is so important. I'm a Catholic. Okay, I believe in God. But not everybody, not all your listeners, not all the people that we coach,
sure,
believe. They have other beliefs. They have other things. They're not Catholic. But you have to have something. You have to have a North Star, Eddie, in my opinion, and I think you agree. Whereas everyone thinks stuff starts to fall apart, you got to have a place to turn. You got to be able to look at the North Star and say, okay, let's get grounded here. Let's get focused. It's going to be okay. Relax, and whatever you believe, but believe in something.
Yeah.
A higher source, energy, God.
Believe in the force, if that's what you want to believe in.
Call it a force. But when guys would come back, and this is interesting, and this will dovetail into something else. When guys would come back to my dad with problems, as I said, addiction, their business, their marriage, everything was going wrong, they come back to him, and he would say, he was very simple. He would say, listen, here's two things you got to do. And he says, your health. I'm looking at you now. You gained a bunch of weight. You're not where you should be physically. You have to figure that out first. Get yourself right. You got to get healthy. And then he says, are you going to church? Have you been praying? How's your faith, is what he would say, essentially. Now, some of these guys, again, whatever you believe in, whatever your religious beliefs are, it's up to you. But he says your health, got to get your health. You got to lose weight. You got to get in shape. And then you got to start going to church again. That was his way of saying, fix your health and get your faith right. Mm-hmm. And then we started watching this, and I said, holy smokes, simple guy here, not complex. If you have your health and you have your faith, Eddie, what a hell of a foundation that is.
Yes.
What can't you accomplish?
Exactly. You're unstoppable.
Those two things, you're unstoppable. You may have lost your business. You may, God forbid, have lost a loved one. You may, whatever you lose, if you have your faith and you have your health, you can come back from anything.
Yeah.
And we have we kind of took that and we added on to it in our coaching, to do four things on a daily basis. If you don't feel good, if you're in a rut, if you've got some anxiety, or you've got some stress or some burnout, we've got four things. You tell me when you want me to quickly go over them. That kind of we expanded on health and fitness, which are two incredible pillars you need. And we brought it to 4 things that we think if you do every day, you can get yourself out of any jam you want.
Yes. Well, let's expand on that. Let's hear what you have to say.
So as a basketball player, you want to make as many shots as you can. You're not going to be on many teams if you can't put the ball in the basket.
Yes.
So as we played our careers, you got to make as many shots as you can.
Yes.
But then, based on my dad's, his thoughts about health and faith, we said there are 4 things you do every day. If you're unhappy, you're depressed, you're sad, and I'm not a doctor, but treat depression and these issues with a doctor if you need to. But if you do 4 things every day, it has been proven, and it is by our clients, by me, by others, but also it's scientifically proven. You do these 4 things every day, you're gonna be in a much better state. And we call it, it's M.I.S.S, miss every day. If you got to move, Eddie, you got to move your body.
Oh, yeah.
You got to exercise. You can't, it's just a fact. You feel better. You look better. You have more confidence. There's a cocktail of chemicals that goes rushing through your body. We're not going to get into now. You feel better. Now, if you want to start walking, if you want to jog, you want to lift weights, you want to do squats, move your body every day. Second thing, the I is improve every day. Get better. Oh, isn't that brilliant? How about expand, grow, learn new things? You earn more if you learn more. That's a fact.
Yes.
So every day improve. Now, I'll tell you how do you improve? Well, you read, you watch, or you listen. Read a great book, as you and I do. And we've got them in my office. Listen these days to a great podcast. Watch a great video on YouTube or Instagram. We would never suggest you waste your time on social media. But let me tell you, Eddie, as you know, there are some of the world's leading thought leaders and business guys on Instagram and YouTube. They can become your mentors. You can learn anything.
Yeah. So
every day, improve. Third thing is serve. Every day, serve anybody and everybody. You can't, if you lead your life in a spirit of service, there are going to be things coming into your life and opportunities that you never imagined. Why? Because you're putting other people in front of yourself. My father would say, it's not about me, it's about we. So live your life in a spirit of service. Do something every day for somebody. Little micro moments during the day, you have opportunities to say something nice or hold a door, or you don't have to donate your time or you don't have to donate your money, but donate some time to people who need it. So far you're moving, you're improving, you're expanding, you're getting better every day. You're serving others. The last thing is shut up. My father wouldn't have liked that term, but we say shut up. Create a block of time every single day in your schedule where you are by yourself with no distractions, in silence.
Yeah.
No cell phones, no emails, no this, no that. You spend time by yourself. And people are like, it's uncomfortable, Tom. That's weird. No, you're gonna learn to love it.
Practice.
Spend 15 minutes by yourself, or 5. Start with 5 minutes. What are we going to do, Tom? Pray. That's what I do. If you don't want to, meditate. How about this? Do nothing. Just think. Just sit there and let things come into your head. Meditate. Visualize. Write in a journal. But spend some time every single day. Eddie, you probably know this. Nobody does this. Or if some do, not enough do it. But if you do those 4 things, you move your body, you improve, you grow, you expand every day, you serve others, and then you spend some time in silence every day with your thoughts, that will get you out of any rut you are in. Now, there are some other things that you have to continue to do to gain momentum. If a person comes to us and says, hey, I'm not making enough money. Okay, you do these 4 things. Then there are some strategies where, okay, we got to figure out how you're going to make some money, how you're going to earn. But if you do those 4 basic things, again, not complex. Okay, you don't need a 10 degrees in psychology to figure this stuff out. If you miss every single day, you're doing 4 critical things that will put you in a better state, and you're going to be a better person.
Yeah. Tom, I love it. And I tell you, one of the things that I love about it is that the acronym sounds like a negative thing, like you're failing, like you're missing, but it actually is showing you how you actually step up and succeed. And I think that that's what's very cool about the acronym.
So Eddie, guys have come up to us, and me and some guys who are sports guys, I brought this to them and like, yeah, but it's negative. Missing is negative. And then I would say, no, it's not. It's not. That is the exact point. That is why we came up with this, because everyone, you get all the accolades if you make the shots.
Yes.
Okay. But guess what? You're not going to make them all. You're going to have a ton of misses, mistakes, setbacks, losses. So miss really is all the mistakes in your life, the setbacks, the defeats you're going to have. So you're not, and thank you for bringing that up. And I think miss, some people say, oh, it's negative. Why would you want to miss every day? No, it's not, because you have to get good at failing. You have to get good at handling defeats. You have to get good at missing before you can become an elite shooter.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm sorry, Tom. That's why I love it, because basically we're programming you to say we're going to fail. Let's just get this out of the way right now. We're going to fail. We're going to have setbacks, and this is how we're going to deal with it. Yep,
it's okay. And because again, as an entrepreneur, most of the time, many times, it feels like it's not working out. You gotta. But when you're a family man, when you have a family, when you work at a corporation, many times it's like, man, things just aren't going the right way here. Mm-hmm. You got to be really good at dealing with that stuff. Exactly. So that's why I'm not ashamed, and I don't regret calling this the MISS method, because I think you got to get great at handling setbacks and defeats or misses.
Yes, that's fantastic. That's really good. So, I just want to stop and say, so if you just do those 4 things, I don't see how you can lose. You're going to be setting yourself up for success. You're going to be setting yourself up for the new stuff to come in, to find those new things and to find the areas that you could really improve on, right? And where to focus your energy. So I think it's fantastic. I think that's a great nugget right now that you dropped, a big bag nugget. And if just you walk away from this episode just with that nugget right there, I think that it's very much worth your time.
I agree. And we've worked, Eddie, we've collaborated, we've mentored, first responders, CEOs, world-class hedge fund managers, guys, elite guys in the military. And they're like, yeah, you're right. These 4 things are absolutely critical pillars, and we're doing it now, and it makes a big difference. Now, it's not, you need to raise a family and to build a business, you need to do some other things economically to get yourself set. And that's for a different conversation. That's for a conversation with you getting elite at sales. But these 4 things have to be a part of your life. And they are part of most the people who are really elite and are doing wonderful things. Know that you got to move your body every day. You got to get better. You got to grow. You got to expand. You got to serve others. Really important. You got to spend some time in silence with your thoughts. Talking to
this is the foundation.
It's the foundation. Yeah. And so it's worked for us, and it's worked for a lot of others. So hopefully your listeners get.
Yeah, and I like to do it. I like to do it in the mornings. I feel like basically I own my day by doing that in the morning and having this ritual and practice in the mornings to get up and schedule my life so that I have an hour and a half every morning just for me to do those things, to get my mind in the right space, to center myself, to refocus on what I'm doing and what's important to me, rather than getting sidetracked with other things. And that might mean that you have to, schedule your life to go to bed a little bit earlier so you can get up earlier, right? But you gotta have the discipline to do what's necessary, because this is like really vital. Like, at one time I had difficulty with this, and, somebody said that, the first part of the day is only for me. This is me time, and I'm worth it and valuable. And I need to take that me time to do this. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's true. And Eddie, you explained earlier when we were talking offline, or maybe today's Saturday, by the way. I absolutely love that you're hosting a show on Saturday, and it's my pleasure to be here on a Saturday. But you told me you have 3 or 4 podcasts today. Then you've got a 2.5-hour seminar you're going to participate in. You got all this stuff going on. Yeah, you got to get yourself right in order to go through that battle of a day that you're going through today.
Absolutely.
So if you get this foundational stuff done in the morning, it's going to allow you to deal with this long, crazy day you have today, which is on a Saturday. So I have immense respect for you for doing all that. Yeah. So this sets you up to have a heck of a day. And we always suggest that people handle these 4 things in the morning, because then it gets your day going, in the right direction.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then your health is so vital in all this. There's no way that you could participate and work 12, 14 hours a day if you're not in good health, if you don't take care of your health. I mean, I tend to do a lot of things for my health. I've regenerated so many things by focusing on my health and taking care of myself and using my spirituality, as the force to kind of, I believe that miracles can happen, but you have to show up and you have to be there and you have to want it,
You got to participate.
You have to participate. Yeah. And so much good stuff has happened, but I fast. I do at least an 18-hour fast every day. And I just juice every day. So, I mean, I do all these things, and it's just vital for my energy and my enthusiasm, and to stay in the zone and to be in the flow, as sports enthusiasts talk about. You have to take care of yourself. It just doesn't happen.
Those are 2 things. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
those
please.
Are 2 things that I'm reading about and I'm thinking about a lot. I'm learning, because I'm always learning. Fasting, something I want to incorporate into my daily schedule, because I know and if have you done an 18? Do you do an 18-hour?
I do at least an 18-hour every day.
Wow, that's terrific. And then juicing is
yeah, and I would say just that's my one thing is I do a fruit juice and a green juice and a beet juice. They're mixed, but I do that during the day. So while I'm in my 18-hour fast, I do drink liquids of all the nutrition to make sure I have my nutrition every day. But what I found by doing it, besides it's a great way to maintain your health, I find it really instrumental in maintaining health and staying in that good health space. But also it gives me massive, massive energy.
Yes.
And there's lots of studies that show the regeneration of your cells, the revitalization of your body, all happens by doing that. It kicks everything into that high gear.
100%. There are many studies that prove that fasting and juicing, but fasting in particular, is a world-class way to increase your longevity and your energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
And I agree with that. And what's funny, Eddie, is we used to, and this is something that is underrated. People don't realize the importance of this one simple thing I'm going to tell you. And whatever your listeners listen, I had the opportunity. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. Okay, my dad was a son of Italian immigrants. It's not the smartest guy in the world. He kept things simple and basic, but we became world class at the simple things and the basics. He used to call them the fundamentals.
Yeah.
But one of the things that is so important, and we talk about it, is the value of being a great guy. Okay. Now, people say, great guy, duh, yeah, but not everybody does it. So let me explain. So when we come in, when we're talking with an entrepreneur client, or we're talking with a guy who's working at a company, he's working at a hedge fund, and the first thing we say is, okay, listen, you got to be a great guy. And they're like, what do you mean, Tom? I own a company. I own 5 companies. I manage $1 billion. What do you mean, be a great guy? Give me something complex here. No. Settle down. Here's what you got to do. Great guys, first of all, make more money. They live longer. They are happier. So how about that for a start? Make more money, you live longer, you're happier. All right, now they're starting to pay attention. But I say, you can't attract, as a business, you can't attract amazing things into your life or amazing things into your business or amazing business partners or amazing investors if you're not a likable guy, if you're not a great guy. So that in itself is simple. And people say, oh, of course. But no, not everyone knows it. Because as you know, in this world, there's a lot of knuckleheads.
Yeah.
And we would tell them, we say, listen, when you do something nice, so we talk about serving every day. When you do something nice for somebody, when you do a kind act for somebody, there is a cocktail of chemicals that goes running through your body. We won't get into that, as I said. But it makes you feel better. The person who receives the kind act, there's a cocktail of chemicals that goes running through their body as well. But Eddie, the person who witnessed this kind act, this interaction between these two people, the person who witnesses the kind act has the same flow of amazing chemicals that goes to their body, and it makes them happier. So you do something for somebody in a crowded area, you're having an impact on hundreds of people potentially. So be a great guy. Simple. It's underestimated, but it's important.
Yeah. And so many times, in my experience, you put out that positive energy to the right, but then something comes back to you from the left. Right? People sometimes, we get caught up in like, so if I'm giving to you, then you're supposed to give back to me. No. You give and you will receive, but maybe not right back from the right, maybe to come from the left, maybe to come from somewhere else. But if you're in that groove, it all comes back.
And right. So what you just said, don't expect something in return. Don't expect,
exactly.
Something is going to reciprocate back to you. No, do it for the right reasons. And the irony of it, Eddie, is when you don't expect it to come back to you as in a quid pro quo way, it comes back to you. When you don't expect it to, guess what? Higher source, God, it comes back to you.
Yeah.
So that's a very good point you make.
Yeah, I love it. The other real benefit of that I have found in the morning rituals that I've been doing for many, many years now, and my spirituality is the fact that I am aware of what I'm saying. I'm aware of what I'm doing. I'm aware of what I'm feeling. I'm aware of what I'm thinking. I'm observing myself. I'm listening to that voice of conscience, voice of reason inside of me, guiding me. And because of that, there's been many challenges that I've had that, I've had to look at. Like, for example, I was in a relationship for a long time and I had done, I'm Catholic also, by the way, and I was, married in a Catholic church, and, I have a long relationship with my priest, and, it was a very difficult thing being in a marriage and not feeling fulfilled and having, something going on there. And I did everything that I possibly could to make myself a better person and to learn better skills on how to have a good relationship, how to, be there for somebody else, how to not be critical and judgmental. Right. And I did everything I could, but the other person didn't change and, continue to decline. And I had to do something. But it was only through my practice of doing these things that I recognized it, my practice of, being honest with myself, that I knew I had to do something. And then eventually, I had to do the thing that was very difficult, was divorce somebody and start over, at 50 years old. But, that's what I had to do, but it was only through doing that. Right. And I think that this is an important part of why you have to own the day, why you have to have some spiritual practice, why you need to focus on these things, is because you need to be aware of what you're doing, where you're going, and not be blindsided. Sometimes we just focus so much on winning that we forget about everything else.
Yes. And Eddie, that is a brilliant point you bring up. Awareness being self-aware and not to, again, we try to, we talk about sports concepts because it's what we do.
Yes.
And we call that watching game film, right? So being aware, if a guy comes to us and he's like, oh my goodness, I am so stressed out. My wife my kids aren't listening to me. My business is struggling. So we step back. Okay, let's watch some game film, Mr. Smith. And if I were to follow you for a day and we're recording everything from when you get up to when you go to bed, and we were to watch some game film of your life, a day in the life of you, what are we going to see?
Yes.
Are there any patterns that are going to emerge that are problematic? Are there some habits that you got yourself into that aren't in your best interest?
That don't serve you. Yeah.
That don't serve you. Let's go back and watch some game film. And then when we talk to guys about this, like, wow, like I said, so if we were to watch you a day in the life of you, are you going to be happy? You going to be embarrassed by some of the stuff you're doing? Are you out too much? Are you out too long? Or are you out you're out too often? Are you drinking too much? Are you being a dick to your spouse? Or do your kids know that you absolutely love them? Let's watch what you're doing on a daily basis. Are you being aware, as you say, of what you are doing to create this angst in your life? And so sometimes when you put it like that, and it heightens their awareness, Eddie, of what is going on. So maybe they could start to do certain things, create some new algorithms, is what we kind of call them, create some new algorithms in your life that won't create this angst and this burnout and this anxiety that you're experiencing. So we call it being aware in our because we like to bring everything back to sports. We say let's watch some game film.
Let's go to the tail of the tape.
Let's go Warner Wolf. Let's go to the videotape. It was one of my favorites, by the way. And all these people from maybe watching who aren't from New York or Connecticut, because he used to be in the New York, wouldn't know who Warner Wolf is, but Google it or watch him. You'll find him somewhere. Yeah.
Well, Tom, listen, I've asked you a lot of questions. We've had a great talk about a lot of inspirational things and skills that people could use and strategies for them to improve. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you want to talk about?
No, but I'm going to tell you a story.
Please.
At the end. And a lot of people have said to me, tell me a story about your mentor, your dad, that kind of resonates. And so I always go to one that doesn't have to do with winning a game. Okay. So it's probably 2005 or 2006. My dad's got a team who's 26-0, one of the best teams he's ever had. They get to the state championship and they lose the state championship at the buzzer. Big upset. So there's a few thousand people who were at the game, and a local television station comes up to my dad after the game, and the reporter says, "Coach, what do you tell your players after a devastating defeat like that?" And he says, "Well, I'm going to tell them that I'm so proud of them for the great season they had. I'm going to tell them that they played so hard. Games don't always go your way, but the sun tomorrow is going to shine." So he says that without any thought, while he's saying that, watching this interview is a guy by the name of Jim Bransfield, who is in Yale New Haven Hospital. He's sitting at the bedside of his son Dana. And Jim was so impacted by my father's quick speech after the game, he wrote my dad a note. And what he wrote in the note this was on a Saturday. He wrote in the note, "Coach Montelli, I saw your interview your words really touched me, because I'm sitting here in a hospital room with my son Dana, who's 14 years old and is dying of leukemia. And the perspective you put, into my head about, it's okay, you lost, the sun's going to come up tomorrow. That really impacted me. Mm-hmm. And so he sends a note to my dad. My dad gets the note on a Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, a nurse comes up to Jim Bransfield in the hospital room, because they were there, him and his wife were there full time, because it was the end of the road for Dana. Mm-hmm. And the nurse says to Jim, there's someone in the lobby that wants to come up and see Dana. So Jim goes down to the lobby. It's my dad. And Jim, this story became known because Jim was a sports writer, and he wrote a letter to the editor a few months later, wanted everyone to know this story. He says, I go down into the lobby and there's Coach Montelli. But Coach Montelli didn't come alone, he says. He brought his entire team with him. Wow. And he had a basketball signed by all of the players. He had flowers for my wife, and he had a set of rosary beads for Dana. Wow. So the doctors wouldn't let the entire team come up to the floor to see Dana, but they let my dad go up. My dad spent some valuable time with Dana. And 3 days later, Dana passed away. But I tell that story, Eddie, because it encapsulates so much. Mm-hmm. There's a devastating loss in a game. My father puts it in perspective, but then this is what he did. His whole team came to the hospital. That I think is a story that speaks volumes about serving others, mm-hmm. handling defeats the right way, being a world-class leader. So thanks for letting me share that story, because I think it's
that's great. It's very touching. Yeah. And
it's a story, Eddie, that my father never wanted to be out there. He didn't expect any accolades from this. Mm-hmm.
He didn't do it to be recognized. Yeah,
absolutely. And Jim Bransfield just was so touched by the thing that he wrote an article in the little newspaper that he was a sports columnist in, detailing this scenario and the story, and that's kind of how it blew up. Mm. But I think for your listeners, I think that's a good story. Whether you're a sports fan or whether you're not a sports fan, I think that story makes you think.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, Tom, listen, I really appreciate your time. I'm very touched and moved by your dad's history and how much he loved the world and how much he gave of himself to the world. Yeah. I am striving to live up to those types of ideals to impact people's lives in a meaningful way. Yes, absolutely. So,
thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah.
I will tell you this. You're a really terrific person. I can tell that. And I loved the time we spent together. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Tom. I will be in touch with you, my friend. For more information and monthly topics of interest, please go to transformyourfuture.com and join our newsletter.